This week, I want to talk about return to throwing programs. A lot of our return to throwing programs for people on different schedules started back this week. Something we spend a lot of time on, whether you should take time off. Obviously, it's important once you take the time off to build up properly. So that's what we're going to start discussing today, as a lot of people should be starting to throw, again, getting ready for high school baseball tryouts in Florida and high school travel ball tryouts in Florida as well. Now is the time that we want to start throwing again. So a few things. Want to go over a combination of mistakes that I see from return throwing programs, whether it's coming back from injury or taking time off, and some questions I've gotten from parents and players where they're just kind of curious about a few of the details that do not get discussed when you're just looking at the calendar. So we'll go through those today, starting with how to get started. We want to go slowly in our progression, and we want to be throwing at a very light intensity. So again, as we discussed, we've been going through some of our other videos. November is the time where we really want to hit the weight room hard and continue that through December, as those are usually the only 2 months where we do not have baseball games. So we want to be doing things in there that are helping us recover lost range of motion, building up lost strength that we have, especially in the posterior shoulder. And doing these things should help us return faster, so that is a plus. But we don't want to go out day one and start throwing at a high intensity. So one of the main things we mean by this, and I'll cover this in pretty much every point up here, start slow and light. We want to have a nice arc to the ball, so when we throw, it should look much more like this than like that. And if you're listening on the podcast, that is a arc compared to a straight line. So think of something that goes up and out as opposed to something that's more of like a head high throw. So the idea is that we're throwing the ball at the distance at the lightest, with the lightest amount of effort, or the least amount of effort that we can put into that throw. So as we do that, again, we're building up just the movement again, feeling the ball in our hands, release point, all the basic things, just really exercising the arm and getting it moving again. So that should be very easy to do, especially at the first couple days where we're at going back to a max of 120 feet or so, so that they can get the idea again just of throwing very lightly and getting some type of motion in without putting the ball on a line. We do not want anything that's head high for that first week. As the program progresses, we have more percentages and we do away with distance. This being percentages, I like percentages more than I like distances. There are distances a few times in the first couple weeks. That's basically to give you an idea or a rough outline of where they should be. And it's usually a close enough distance where it shouldn't matter for a high school baseball player. Obviously, there's a distance between a 9th grader that throws 75 throwing 120 feet and a 12th grader that throws 92 throwing 120 feet. But the idea is that we're going out a little bit further than base length apart, so than the 90 feet, and we're very lightly exercising the arm. We're going to do a follow-up video to this with demonstration, so make sure you check our YouTube page as well for that. And there'll be something on Instagram too, just demonstrating what we mean by this so you can have a visual. But the idea is that we want the percentage over a distance, and one thing is because everyone's max distance is a little bit further. You should have an idea about how far you can throw a baseball. A lot of kids treat that max distance like a velocity where they exaggerate it and it's not accurate. So throwing on something like a football field, especially if there's a turf one nearby, would be great. Or just having some type of tape measure or measuring system would be ideal as you get to a max distance phase as well. And then coming back into a build-up, you can have those numbers down. So if you throw the baseball at max effort 300 feet, you know that your 50% is 150 feet, and you understand the percentage that's needed to get the ball that 150 feet, which is also very important. So for that reason, I like the percentages over the distances. I don't want people that can, again, that throw 75, throwing 150 feet is a lot more stressful than someone throws 90 throwing that distance. So we use the percentages there. We expect you to have some feel with that. I also like the percentages because we use it as an intensity and monitoring intensity as well, along with the actual distance that you're throwing, and those should work hand in hand if you're doing it right. So with distances, we've had kids come back from injury. They're prescribed to throw 60 to 90 feet, and you look at them and 3 throws in, they're throwing the ball head high, and they're probably throwing at 80 to 85% of their max velocity. And they just think they're playing catch, but they really don't have any feel or any clue about what's going on. And then with those kids are usually the ones who are like, oh, after a week of doing starting back my throwing program, I have arm soreness again, or my elbow hurts again, or I shut down for shoulder tendonitis and it hurts in the same place again. Well, you're going back right into close to 100%. Of course, it's not going to feel good. So we want to use that as intensity. Again, if you can throw a ball 300 feet and you have a 50% day, we want to go back to 150 feet and we want to lob the ball. I told you I'm going to hammer that idea of throwing the ball up in the air, nice arc on the ball, low intensity, using your body and just trying to get your body and your arm to work together to get the ball there and not really adding any arm speed. So that's really important for the intensity as well. As you go back to 80% distance, it should also be 80% intensity, where you're throwing the ball some more effort into it and it's causing more stress in your arm, obviously, and more adaptation that we want. And then working back to 100%, you're just putting everything into it, and that's going to be 100% effort and distance. We also do not include a number of throws at each distance or overall. I'm huge on that because everyone's different. And myself throwing a ball 120 feet, again, we can look at the distances and intensities that we're throwing with, or we can just say that I'm a guy that likes to feel a lot of things out. And so moving back, I'm going to work slower. I'm going to have my drills that I'm doing throughout as I go. And I'm going to want to spend a little bit more time at the distances that are a little bit closer. And then by the time that someone starts working back, I'm more warm, so I can go a little bit faster at that point. Or there's some guys that don't like to spend a lot of time up close. They feel like their bands and their warm-up routine, plyo balls, whatever they're using, get them pretty good closer, and they want to start at 120 feet because they've already kind of done the other prep work. Neither one is right or wrong. It just depends on the person, what we're trying to accomplish. So that's why I say that feel greater than number of throws each distance. And again, if we're working at something specifically with sequencing and we're trying to throw at a certain percentage at like 180, 200 feet, sometimes guys like to stay around that distance because when they do something right, the ball flies, and sometimes they'll overthrow the guy and they know that they're working at the same intensity. Hey, I threw the ball 20 feet further, then their sequencing gets out of whack and they throw the ball 10 feet in front of it, one hops the guy, and now they know, like, all right, now I've had two throws, totally different results. Let me figure out the way to get the ball throwing over his head using the same intensity, because that means my sequencing is right and working on whatever they're working on particularly. So we're not going to have a set number of throws because someone might say, oh, I did my 5 throws at 180 feet, I need to move on, as opposed to staying there and working through that, and that's obviously more beneficial to the player. So we do not use a number of throws for that reason. Overall, again, you can see there's a lot of vagueness to this program on purpose. Again, that goes back to the individual. When you're doing something like this, especially on your own, and it's tougher for someone that's earlier in high school, but as you become a senior and into your college years, you should know and understand yourself and be able to coach yourself. If you cannot coach yourself by senior year of high school and have some type of feel with these sort of things, you're going to be very behind moving forward. And the other issue with that is you may be coached by someone who tries to cookie cut you, and then you go along with it, and it ends up being detrimental to your career because you're a yes man and you're a robot and you don't know what's going on, as opposed to understanding the feels and understanding a program that works for you. So make sure that as you're doing this, there is some playability with it. You are sculpting it to be your own. You're not using that as an excuse to shortcut parts of it or not put in the work. But it should be something that gives you amount of freedom and gives you a higher ceiling with this return to throw program. And again, if I can't say it 100 times, I don't think it would be enough. Make sure you understand the intensity that you're throwing with at the certain distances, and we're throwing the ball as lightly as possible as your partner's moving back. It has a specific time for something like pull downs or max distance throws, but other than that, as your partner is moving back, the ball should not be on a line, should not be head high. It should have a nice arc to it. So make sure you check out our other videos coming up this week. We will have the visuals of me throwing with someone and demonstrating these different throwing types into those, and I think that'll make it a lot easier to understand.